The following will contain spoilers for the Steven Universe and Steven Universe Future franchise. Thank you. Oh, Steven Universe, I miss you already. Oh, hi Artemis. I guess it's time. Hi folks, this is Dragon Videos, ready to present another top 10 list. I have been going over some of the sympathetic gems in Steven Universe, and I decided that now would be a good time after Steven Universe and Steven Universe Future to talk about the top 10 best character arcs in Steven Universe. And be warned, there will be spoilers coming up, so be on your guard. Time and again, we've always seen various character arcs in cartoons and anime alike, of how one character goes from point A to point B, and Steven Universe is no different. In this list, I'm going to go over some of the top 10 Steven Universe character arcs of where they've gone far in their journeys, and I'm excluding Steven out of this because he's the main character. He's always going to have the best arcs. So I'm going over some of the best top 10 characters that had the best character arcs throughout the entire franchise. Spinel, of course, was on my number 1 list of top 10 sympathetic gems, and you would understand why. She was left behind by Pink Diamond in a decaying garden for 6,000 years and had no knowledge of it until Steven Universe the movie. So of course it would make sense for her to lash out at people because she had no idea how to do it in terms of Pink. She felt like her anger was justified, that she had every right to attack them, and in some ways it was, sick as that sounds. And of course, Steven helped her, made her realize that all she just wants is friends. And it's really difficult for her because after being abandoned by Pink, she felt unlovable. And of course, when the diamonds came into play, she started to feel a little bit better and valued by someone. It's because of their healthy relationship with her, as far as I got from Steven Universe Future. It helps Spinel overcome some of that abandonment issue, as well as being a little bit more letting go of what had happened to Pink. I swear there really should be a spin-off for this because I want to see more of how Spinel grew as a character, which is why I put her number 10, because it's very interesting of how far Spinel had come, but we've only had a short amount of time with her. So, the Diamonds were once rulers of Gem Society. They had to everything make perfect, but, well, it was toxic. And of course, these 3 in particular were just a mess. Thankfully, Steven stepped in and helped them in ways to help with their coping mechanisms of that loss. And in Steven Universe Future, we found that they've developed a little bit better in terms of their character arcs. Let me explain in each one of them. For Blue, she was always come off as shut out. She would always emotionally grieve whenever possible and gets depressed about leadership. Whenever she's upset about something, she would use her emotion powers to lash out at others whenever possible, just to make herself feel better. However, when she and Steven had a heart-to-heart talk, she realized of how bad her behavior was, of how she was always shutting off everyone's emotions. It was in the song My Little Reason Why, she started to become a little bit more empathetic. She's recognizing what she did wrong with Pink and turned it around in a more positive direction. She wanted to change. She really wanted to have a healthier relationship with other gems, such as with Spinel. With My Little Reason Why, she was also showing that she's just able to empathize with gems a little bit more and come to have some form of under-emotional standing. However, with Yellow, she was a bit of a tougher cookie. She was a no-nonsense leader who was ruled over by logic, but we all knew that she always buried her emotions with her work. However, when she was confronted with Blue and eventually learned the truth about what happened to Pink at the time, she slowly started to have those pictures added together of why these sorts of things happen, and she even became to register of what her emotions and recognize that what she was doing was not healthy. Thankfully, in Steven Universe Future, we learned that she's been doing some makeup or restoration of the gems that she had heard, which showed that she's recognizing her own destructive capabilities. As for White, she was always dismissive, not acknowledging other people around her, and she was worse than Blue Diamond to say the least. But now she lets herself in, or lets other people in, literally, and become a medium so they could speak their thoughts through her. And yes, of course, we've learned some of that dark concept and how it could backfire in an ugly way, but at least they're trying. And another thing that landed in number 9 is what happened in I Am My Monster. The Diamonds were all recognizing of how their relationship with Pink was also affecting Steven both emotionally, mentally, and physically. They were the result of that trauma. And White, who really took us by surprise, was emphasizing of how, in the nutshell, it was all her fault. The war, the chaos, Pink running away from home and being rose quartz. That's basically what happened, and that's why I put them in number 9, because these characters, though they had a short brief of time, took responsibility. They actually showed that they were willing to change, and they made the best of it. So congrats to the Crewniverse to make up for the short amount of time. Yes, dear Steven Universe fans, this list would not be complete without the inclusion of Pink Diamond herself. Yeah! I understand y'all hate her after what she did in Steven Universe, but please hear me out on this character. Anyway, in Jungle Moon, she come off as a bit of a spoiled, ungrateful brat that deserved to be shattered. But as we progress forward with the story, we learn that she was abused by her sisters, mothers, whatever you want to call them, and never was able to fit in with the status quo. When she was finally able to get the planet, she learned the consequences with the colonization, that it was stealing life away. Recognizing the consequences about these, she went against that and decided to create an identity for herself, as well as giving other gems a chance to think for themselves, and found her own sense of freedom. Along the way, she developed a relationship with Greg, who in some ways helped her grow as a character. Not completely mature, but in a way, she became a better person with Greg. She recognized that some of the behavior she had was not okay. Even though it was too late for her to fix it, she managed to at least move forward with her life and try to change for the better. And I add the emphasis of try, which is why I put her at number 8. In the beginning of the series, Garnet always was an air of mystery. There wasn't much that we could talk about her in the beginning of Season 1 until towards the end of it, we learned that she was a fusion between the two gems, and that she started off with an awkward relationship but got better along the way. But when the truth about who Rose Quartz really was, you could sort of say they basically fell apart. Both literally and figuratively. They started to question their relationship, and Ruby and Sapphire had to deal with it with 2 different ways. Thankfully, with Steven's help in the marriage process, they started to renew their vows not because someone told them to, but because they want to be together. And, as we learn in Steven Universe Future, Garnet still is a good relationship to have with one another, even though she wasn't as flawed as the other characters, she still had some growth going on, and recognizing the fact that even though she is a relationship, it doesn't mean that Ruby and Sapphire can't have their own thing. Like I said before, and I'll say it again, Bismuth means well. She's only just trying to be there for her fellow gems against a horrible enemy. The problem was, the way she approached things was terribly wrong. So she basically created the breaking point, which would kill all gems. That went against everything the crystal gems stand for. Stephen didn't think this was a good idea. A fight broke out, and of course, Bismuth said you really are better than her before she was poofed by Stephen. And when she learned about the truth about what Rose really was, it's by then that Bismuth begins to understand some of the consequences that came with her own actions, not with just Rose. After all, she said, maybe she finally took my advice. And in some ways, it could be true. It could be something that makes her realize that her actions also have consequences as well. And also that sometimes if you want to be a better person, it doesn't mean you have to result in violence. There are other ways to solve a problem. Lapis really has been through so much. It would make sense to sympathize with her at that point. Okay, I get it. Y'all hate her too. But please hear me out in terms of her character development. In the beginning, she was a gem that was stashed in a mirror for thousands of years. So of course she was gonna go lashing out and get crazy. And then of course she fused herself to Jasper, which resulted in the toxic relationship, as I had mentioned before many times, and was reluctant to get involved in any more wars. In Why So Blue, we definitely learned that she's finally gotten over that fear and that trauma, and that she paid attention to the feelings of others. She even showed that even though she's the most powerful gem, she recognizes that sometimes lashing out others is not a good idea, and that if you want to get through trauma, it's always best to talk things out first before you take irrational action. Connie from the very start began as a shy, withdrawn girl. Well, part of the reason why was because of her parents. You see, Stephen came into the picture of her life and she started to open up a little bit more and began exploring new things. And as she was healed by Stephen, she also helps become a bit supportive of him, help him get through some of the tough times, especially with that of the gems. And as she grew as a person, she also helped Stephen feel valued for who he is, regardless of being a diamond or being a human. And finally, in Steven Universe Future, she was practically the shining star. She recognized Steven's problem and wanted to address it. This shows that when she was withdrawn previously, she wanted no part of getting involved in anyone else's problem. But when she began to grow more confident as a person, as well as talking with her parents, she started to grow interest. She started to be more vocal of her feelings, as well as recognizing another person's problem. She wanted others to pay attention to that as well, which is why I put her in this list. Amethyst always comes off as an amazing badass who would always want to whip anyone's butt if you look at her funny. But, jokes aside, she really is someone who was suffering personal issues. She was so insecure about herself, feeling that she should never have been born, or made as gems like to put it. But after being with Stephen, fusing into smoky quartz, and encountering the Amethyst, Amethyst began to take some value and pride of who she is as a person, and by then started to understand of how Stephen feels and become a better guidance to other gems who are suffering like her. Pearl, or Bird Mom as we like to call her, always came off as someone of comic relief every once in a while. But I would understand why some of you would find her a bit annoying when she gets so overprotective of Steven and have this unhealthy obsession with rose quartz. It didn't exactly help our outlook on her when she fused with Garnet on more than one occasion in Cry for Help just so she could feel better about herself. But when you learn about her backstory, you would understand why. She was a long-time servant to Rose Quartz since the beginning of the war. She was even forced to take on the form of Rose Quartz to fake the shattering of Pink Diamond so life could continue on and Earth would be liberated. Because of his sacrifice, and to make things worse, Rose being pregnant, Pearl had to deal with this loneliness, struggling with a sense of independence. It was no wonder she was such a mess throughout half of the series, but when she had some support with Garnet and Amethyst, and of course from Steven, she became more confident as a person, being able to get through some of the inventions, as well as overcoming some hurdles that Homeworld had provided for her. Holy cow, number 1 was insane in terms of writing, and the character arc is amazing. Peridot really came off as a near robotic gem in her debut in Warp Pad Tour. She would have come off as a very iconic villain, emotionless, calculating. She was definitely everything we would have thought of for a villain. But when she lost her limb enhancers, gets trapped on Earth, and is facing eventual doom, she finds herself having to rely on the crystal gems and Steven in order to survive. We also learned that she's an heir to Peridot, which means she's not defective per se, it's just they were running low on resources, and she felt like she was pretty useless without her limb enhancers. So of course it was very difficult to have proper confidence in her skills and abilities. And throughout some of the episodes in Season 2, she started to have more opinions than she would never have over on Homeworld. But the biggest highlight of her character arc was in A Message Received, where she meets up with Yellow Diamond and tries to give off her ideas. But then when they were shut down, Peridot called her a clod, forever breaking the link between the two. This resulted in our crystal gem Peridot that we all know and love. I put her number 1 because her character development was just insane, of how she came from this unfeeling, horrible person and highly potential villain into this lovable green Dorito who finally learns what it means to be a friend. And that friendship becomes quite effective in Steven Universe's future, because even though Peridot no longer has to rely on diaries and such, she still has some ways of learning of how to understand another person's feelings. She no longer has to rely on someone else to tell her otherwise, which is such a huge difference between the gems. And again, this is just one character arc that needs to be recognized. Congratulations, Peridot. You really are the best character arc in this series. Well, folks, this is all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe, check out my other videos in my channel, and also feel free to have a comment below of the character arcs that you've seen in Steven Universe. And this is Dragon Videos, signing off.